My name is Sandy Reid. The date is August 23rd, 2014. We're at the PIA meeting in Denver, Colorado, and we're here doing the interview. I was born and raised in Michigan, grew up my formative years in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or just south of Kalamazoo in the rural areas. And I made my first parachute jump on May 12th, 1970, which happened to be my 22nd birthday. Always had the urge to do a parachute jump of one sort or another. When I joined the Marines, I went into Marine Recon because they got the jump out of airplanes. Unfortunately, I never got an opportunity to do it while I was in the Marines. But about 6 or 7 months after I got out, it was in probably late April or so of 1970, I had a place, Austin Lake, Michigan, and on the south shore of Austin Lake was Austin Lake Airport. And it turns out it's only a mile from my home that I'd lived for many, many years. And I didn't know they had any skydiving there. But I was on the other side of the lake with some friends of mine, one of them being Sam Brown. And we were into drag racers with some friends. The guy had a really nice gasser. And we saw parachutes coming down. I go, parachutes? I said, I'm going to go check it out. Sam says, let me know what's going on. So I went over there, and it turns out it was the Pegasus Skydiving Club. It was Western Michigan University Sport Parachute Club. And an individual named John Jeffries was one of the founding members of the club, the father of Jack Jeffries. Jack was just a little tyke at the time, running around there. But anyway, they said, sure, we'll show you how to do this. $25 is what it's going to cost you to make your first jump. So went out, did my training and everything, and being on the south shore of the lake, it was about their pea gravel was about 100 yards south of the lake. They were putting their students in the lake on a regular basis. The winds had changed. They had Sentinel openers, the early Sentinel AEDs, and they'd have to send them back to SSE and get them checked out. So I did my training, and they didn't have them to be able to do our first jump. But I happened to stop out. It was on a Tuesday, and they said, hey, you want to make your jump today? We got an AAD. And I said, oh, you got them back? I says, no, we have another one. We have a Cap 3. And that belonged to Ellen Jeffries. Elena was John Jeffries' wife, and she had a Cap 3, and they had one of the club reserves that had a Cap 3 plate on it. So they taught me how to take this thing, and you had this little limp thing that you had to stick the pin into it and everything. And you know, when it pulled out, it goes running down. And said, okay, and showed me how to do it, and put me in the airplane, and my jump master was Ken Coleman. And I remember that jump to this day, as I got out of the airplane, went up, and went out, did a nice arch, and I did good comment in my logbook, and Ken had his head sticking out of the airplane. He had this big shit-eating grin on his face, just grinning big time on it, and I said, yeah. So I got down, and he said, what do you think? I said, I want to do it again. So that was the start of this whole thing, and as I went on and got into the skydiving, Sam Brown, he called me up. He says, "Hey, what about this parachuting?" So I told him, I said, "Okay." So he came too, and Sam and myself, we both started within a few days of each other. He jumped, I think, a week later or something, and we went on and became a member of the Austin Lake Skydivers. And there was Ken Coleman, Sam Brown, myself, and Don Carpenter were the founding members of the Rainbow Flyer four-way team in 1972. We were doing four-way. It was interesting. Ken did a little meet at Austin Lake and invited folks from Lansing and Tecumseh and others out there. And it was kind of a setup because he wanted to win the four-way, and we did. We won the four-way. I remember we did 2 back-to-back four-way jumps in like 23 seconds or something, and we got these little trophies that we had on it. Still have it. But so anyway, we went on to become the Rainbow Flyers and the core members of the Beechnut Star team, Austin Lake Skydivers at that time. The individual who ran the drop zone, Bruce Dillon, married into a woman that had quite a bit of money, and he bought the airport and had lots of airplanes. And he had the only twin beach in the Michigan at that time. I think the only other one was down in Greene County. They had twin beaches down there. And so a lot of people would come there. And it was interesting because as I went through my progression and got to do 60-second delays, they got up to the point that they said, we have 5 people for the beach, we need 6 in order to take it up, so they'd take a passenger, so they'd talk you into paying for a slot even though you weren't jumping, so they could build it. And they started with 4, 5, 6, 8. And then in 1972, we built the first 8-way in Michigan at the time. And I went on from there. And the core, those group of people that were with that became the Beechnut Star team. And in Thanksgiving of 1972, we took the Twin Beach and we went to Zephyr Hills, Florida. Went down there. And lo and behold, we did very well down there in the team. I can't remember exactly what what we came back with, but it was in the first 5 teams or something like that. And we went on to become the core of 8-way and 10-way. Well, this was before 8-way, I should be 10-way Speed Star at that time. And went on, and the beach nuts are what's really the part of my heart, the history of my skydiving. It taught me a lot about skydiving and the team and everything. And of course, we have the reunion that's coming up here next week. But anyway, in 1974, and I was going to school at the time. I was going, and I was working nights at Western Michigan University as a janitor. And I remember one night, and I was talking to TK last night about it. I was cleaning up like a lecture hall or something, and I had this epiphany. I'm going to become a roaming rigger. I'm going to take my sewing machines and put them in a truck or a trailer or something. I'm going to travel the country and provide rigging services to drop zones that don't have master riggers and stuff. Because I had a harness machine and a couple other machines. And I did. I scrounged up all the money I had and bought this big 32-foot aluminum body step van, like a big bread truck kind of thing. And one of the team members that was on the team was John Sherman, had the jump shack out of Novi, Michigan. And I worked a deal with John, and we come up with the first piggybacks, the rainbow, or let me put it, the beach nuts. The beach nuts, one of their big claims to fame was that they're the first 10-way team to jump all ram air canopies and all piggybacks in national competition in 1974. We had 10 SSTs, red and white SSTs, red and white strong jumpsuits, red and white Stratostars. We had 10 of the first 30 prototype Stratostars with rings and rope systems. And so at that time I decided to go on the road, but I was still a member of the team. And we went to Tellico, Oklahoma, and we went to Wagner, Oklahoma, which is just west of there a bit, and had a training camp for about a week. And we had Dick Morgan came out from Paraflight to teach us how to pack and jump these Stratostars with these long rings and ropes. And the good thing was about half the team were riggers, because we were packing and cutting away and packing and cutting away, and by the end of the week we pretty much had it figured out. And we went on to place 5th in the competition. We probably would have done better. We had one 30-second plus jump on it, and that kind of put us out of the running. But we set the stage at that time. The other teams that were there was Captain Hook was there. They had Jerry Bird, and the others were in the thing. But 1974 was a watershed moment at that point with the equipment, because by a year later, by 1975, the Stratostars had taken off big times. The sliders came out and changed the way that the canopies were reliable and had good openings on it. And the SSTs were the rig of choice. This was before Bill Booth was building Wonderhogs at that time. And if you went anywhere in the Midwest, everybody was jumping an SST. If you were anybody and had equipment, and if you look at the pictures that we have for the everybody's jumping SSTs. And it went on to become what is now the Racer today. Thing. So John was a pretty big pioneer back at that time, and several members of the team were working with the jump shack in their shop and everything. So anyway, in 1974, at that point, I went on about an 18-month journey around the country to various parts of the country. I went to the Northeast U.S., I went to the Zephyr Hills 2 times, the Nationals 2 times. I had one long trip out west. I spent the winter of 1974-75 in Casa Grande, commonly known as the Gulch. Spent 3 months out there with my van and set up a shop there in one of the hangars at the Gulch. And B.J. Worth had the USFET, and his people were out there jumping. And I always thought it was kind of interesting, because they looked at this Stratostar with this rings and rope with suspicion, but when the winds came up, different people would like to jump it, so they didn't have to jump their piglets and cheapos and other things they were doing at the time. But I continued the trip in the spring, went through California, up through Oregon, Washington, Montana, Salt Lake, back to Michigan, and I did like 30,000 miles on this over about 18 months period. Unfortunately, at the end of the 18 months or so, I went broke. It was not a money-making proposition. It had a lot. It was a fairly high overhead. It was after the 1973 gas crunch, and the gas prices were up, and things like that. So I came back to Michigan, went to work for a hippie leather company for a while, designing bags and belts and stuff for them. And Ken Coleman had a gig going with a guy that wanted to set up a parachute training school in Iran. And Ken was the contact, because the Rainbow Flyers at that point were the world champions. They'd been to Warrendorf, Germany in 1975, and were the champions. And so he said, hey, would you like to do this? So it was on, it was off, it was on, it was off. and it didn't come around for whatever reason. It collapsed. But in 1976, I had the opportunity. I said, I'm tired of working in this leather factory, and the World Meet was coming up in South Africa in 76. So in June of 76, I sold all my stuff, all my machines and everything, took what money I had, bought a round-trip ticket, and packed a very special double hand deploy rig that I built in the winter of 75, 76 with a friend of mine, Jim Taffralian, who was a team member on the Beach Nuts and a rigger, and went to South Africa in June of 76. And I ended up spending 4.5 years in South Africa, and worked for a company called Parachute Industries of Southern Africa, or PISA. And I jumped with the South African team all the years that I was down there, and we did fairly well. Went to a couple world meets, got some medals, and met my wife Brenda in South Africa. And yeah, that's another story. As a side note, I'll tell you that is good. It was a pretty good one. So anyway, but in 1981, I returned to the States, married Brenda, brought her back with me, her and the dog we had. And went to work for Mike Sarasoli in DeLand, Florida at Sky Supplies. And that worked for about 6 months or so, and then I had an opportunity to go to work for Bill Booth and set up Three Ring Incorporated, which is his marketing company for the Three Ring release. And did that for about 6 months. Then I had an opportunity, Dean Westgard had Westgard Parachutes out in Southern California. Dean called me up, and I'd met him several years before, and says, hey, I'm looking for someone to run the business. Would you be interested? So he flew us out there, looked at the operation, said this looks like a good deal, and we packed up our stuff and we moved to Southern California and we ran Westgard. Unfortunately, Dean died a couple of years later. He had a very serious bout of cancer that he fought and went very quickly. The family wanted to sell the business, wanted too much money for it. In 1984, we had moved the Westgard from Laguna Beach, California to Paris, California. And during that time, I designed a rig of my own. That's what I did when I was in South Africa, doing a lot of design work for the company, mainly military systems, but we also built a rig called the Spring Hog, which is kind of a Wonder Hog mutation, you might say, but kind of nice. And so anyway, I designed what became the Talon in 1984. In 1985, I set up Rigging Innovations in Paris, California. And we had Rigging Innovations in Paris until 1999, when Larry Hill came to me with a proposition to move to Eloy, Arizona. He wanted to establish some subsidiary parachuting businesses to Skydiving Arizona, similar to what they have in DeLand. You know, DeLand served as the model. They had the manufacturers there, and a lot of smaller companies doing it, and they provide a lot of jobs to the thing. And Larry brought city manager and some council members over to look at our company and made me a proposition, and we had a place to set up. And we moved to Eloy, Arizona, and that would be in at the end of '99. It was over the Christmas vacation. And we moved there, and we've been in Eloy, Arizona ever since. And this is now our 28th year of being in business. We have the Talon, we have the Telesys, the Flexon, have the patent on the Three Ring, or the flexible the ring harness, I should say, that we have. And at the same time, one thing we did, and let me jump back one thing. In 1971, after I'd been jumping for about a year, Ken Coleman and I went to Ted Strong's rigging school in North Quincy, Massachusetts. And Ted was running a school there. It was a 2-week course. It cost us $200. I thought that was a nice price at the time. And got my senior rigger's ticket with back and chest. And one of our instructors was Dan Pointer at the time. He was working with Ted. And not too long ago, probably a couple of years ago, I was going through some papers and I found the original letter from Ted Strong to the FAA authorizing me to take the test and everything, that I'd done my 20-pack jobs back and chest and everything, and signed by Edward T. Strong. And the last time I saw Ted, came to Eloy, and I showed it to him. It was on the wall. And he laughed. I laughed. It was great, because we're back to a lot of the memories that we had at that time. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget Ted, because he shaped what I'm doing today. He and Dan Pointer both. My folks wanted me to be a professional, lawyer, doctor, something like that. I went to college, and at the beginning of my senior year, I said, screw it. That's when I went on the road with the van. And it changed my life to what I'm doing. Got into the industry, and I've never regretted it. I've met fantastic people. I've traveled the world, made a reasonable living, not very rich and everything, but I'm comfortable. I can't complain. Met my wife, which really changed my life as much as anything out there. But I'm doing what I enjoy. And if you look at the historical part of it, as far as what I've done, I think I've done things a lot of other people have not. Some people say I should write my autobiography, and maybe one day I will. I probably should. But the key thing that we tried to do, one thing did, when we moved to Eloy, we had the facility, we had an extra room, about 3,000 square feet, and said, what are we going to do with this room? Because we had our manufacturing in one part and our offices, and we had this, and I said, this is going to be the best loft we have in the country for this. But the other thing was, we'd been training parachute riggers prior to that point. And so we set up the U.S. Academy of Parachute Rigging, which we started in 2000, and we have trained several hundred people over the years now, and I'd like to think that we are the premier rigger training organization in the world. We do right now primarily military, but we do a lot of civilians worldwide, and I think we've made an impact on the rigging community worldwide. There's many people. Many years ago, I used to say we trained most of the riggers in Germany. We had a lot of Germans coming through, and they went on to become the major people and the players in their particular country and organizations back there. And to this day, we still have people that come back to us and everything going on. And those people have gone on to train riggers in their own countries. The French have now changed their system, and we have trained some of the French people, and they now have a similar organization based on what we're doing at the USAPR. So one of the things that I would like to encourage people, and rigging has become my life. You know, when people ask me what I do, you go on an airplane and you strike up a conversation with somebody. When you tell them you're a parachute rigger, that is an icebreaker. It starts the conversation and it goes on forever. But the thing is I do consider myself a parachute rigger, even though I've done all these other things over the years. Rigging is my life, and I like to encourage people to do it. It's not what I would call the most financially rewarding job out there. I always ask people, if I want to rig, if you want to be a rigger, why do you want to be a rigger? Are you crazy? You're not going to never make a lot of money. But there are those people that stick with it, and they go through and they earn their spurs, so to speak, and they rise up through the levels of within the profession and become people like myself that are the designers, the owners, loft managers, the people in the military that go on up, that are the people that are the mainstay of the rigging community. And the skydivers must never forget that without the riggers, they don't have any skydiving. Without the designers, they don't have any equipment. We are really the foundation that this whole thing builds on. And we've gone through all the various things. If you look at Bill Booth, the contributions that he's done, the ones that Ted Strong has done, myself and others and everything, the innovations and the designs that we've come up with over the years are the things that are the core of what we're doing today. A problem that we have today is that I don't see a new generation of people. If you look at of people in the industry that are coming up there, the founders of PIA, which used to be the PEIA, they're all getting very gray. They're getting a little long in the tooth, long in the beard, gray in the hair. And in many cases, they don't have their family members that are following on in the industry out there. They don't want to do this. They don't have this drive, that's burning fire in the gut that we had back in the day. And I'm concerned that we don't have those people. But I'm also optimistic that I think there will be people that will come out of the woodwork. I get people that come up and they say, yeah, I want to do this. I want to try this. And they seem to have a talent. People ask me how I do what I do, and I don't know. I told the French crew team a couple of years ago, we worked with them extensively for many years. They said, how do you do this stuff? I said, I dream about it. And they laughed. They looked at me and they just laughed and everything. But every time I see them, they say, what are you dreaming about now? And I really do. And I think other people are very much along the same lines, that they have this innate ability or vision of what we're doing in the industry of the sport. And I would hope that other people, they can take a look and maybe learn from what we've done if they have this little thing, this nugget that pops up there. Maybe I can build a better mousetrap. Because I keep seeing new technology all the time, and I don't think it'll ever stop. You know, the ultimate skydiving rig is an anti-gravity belt. You got this belt. You go out there, you fly out, and you do this, and you can do whatever you want to in your suit. And when you get down there, you just get down to 10 feet or 50 feet or 100 feet, you push the button, boom. And lets you down. Go, yeah, this is cool. Think about what the wingsuits are doing today. Have a guy strap a skateboard on his chest and land this sucker right down the runway. You know, maybe that'll happen. I don't know. Think about it, picture it, vision it, it'll probably happen somewhere down the line. It's like the comic books back in the 30s, all these things they had with the various people that did stuff and everything. And we're doing it today. The wingsuiting in particular is one of the biggest examples out there. So there we are. I don't know. That's all I can say, but I tell you what, it's been a hell of a ride.